Was it as nail-biting as it seemed, in your view?
It was close to my bedtime. When I saw sort of 60-odd minutes gone, they were 2-0 down, I thought, oh, no, it's not going to be as cheery tomorrow. What a remarkable comeback.
It was incredible. I mean, as you're right, Sweden scored 2 goals in the first half, and it was like 11 minutes before the end of full-time that England came back and scored 2 goals in quick succession.
Let's have a look. You can see some of these. These are the comeback goals. This is great. 11 minutes
And then the penalties were such a roller coaster. I think we can look at these because it was... Oh, my goodness. I mean, thank God it went our way, but it didn't look like it necessarily was going to, did it?
It was very... And to be fair, congrats to England this morning.
Yes.
Some of the penalties taken by England weren't that great. But
the saves.
Hannah Hampton, you know, the England goalkeeper, was brilliant. The Swedish goalkeeper actually took a penalty as well.
Right.
And she'd been great and saved goals.
Amazing.
But it went way over the goal. So, I mean, it was nail-biting, no doubt.
I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? This is great for the sport, great for football. I mean, they struggled in the group stages a little bit, the women's. We worried whether they would get through. They've got there. So maybe, with a bit of luck, they're peaking at the right time.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
You know what always pleases me about sport like moments like this? It's just, God, we need something like this, don't we? With everything that's going on, wouldn't it be great to get to the final and just have some joy? Salma, you'd be out partying.
Well, no. Well, yeah, I would.
I mean,
maybe I'd be in partying. Maybe I'd be in partying, given my age, stage. But yeah, you're right. These national moments, they're important because it is about that collective sense of being part of something, but also a little bit of joy. But on the flip side of that, when things go horribly wrong, you know, in the sport, it can have the downs.
We just saw there that was the moment that we won when they missed the last penalty, and look at the joy. The joy feels like a person underneath that.
That wasn't the Swedish side, that was us.
Exactly.
Well, look, because there's a lot that we need to be joyful about because there's so much that isn't it? Oh. What a mess this data leak is. And each day seems to bring a new twist, a new, question you want to ask about the structure that allowed it to happen and why the super injunction was in place. And the latest detail we have is that spies and special forces were included in this data leak, some 100 Britons. So their risk is now, the risk to them is now in question, isn't it?
Well, it's incredibly disturbing. The whole thing, there's so much about this that you can unpick. I mean, firstly, that, you know, somehow in the MOD, someone handling the most incredibly important data thought they were sending a list of a relatively small number of names of applicants, ended up in a file sending masses of information. Now, there's something to me there where I'm thinking, oh, my goodness, government's always talking about data, how we use data, how we process data, how we share data. On this crucial issue, where was the safeguarding? Where was the process?
I mean, the amount of times you can't get information because of data problems, whether it be your own health records, the health records of someone you love, you know, it's become sort of utterly infuriating. And yet, you know, you don't want to witch hunt for the poor soul that pressed send because it doesn't sound like it was necessarily an individual fault, does it? It sounds like there was a system.
But you should have systems around this to obviously check how. Then the other aspect of this, of course, is the super injunction and nobody knowing about this as well. Now, I think sometimes I can understand in government there are certain things that may happen where lives are at risk, where you just have to take action, and that is not the time and place to say put it on the front page of the newspaper or discuss it on Good Morning Britain. But as someone who served on the Intelligence Security Committee that had oversight of all the intelligence agencies across government, it is a very private committee. We get classified information. We do it in a spirit of absolute secrecy and confidence to look at some very, very important national security issues.
So when you were on that committee, as indeed when this took place, it was with the last government. You know, is it your belief that the people on that committee weren't informed of this?
This happened when I wasn't on the committee, this was before 2019, but Kevin Jones, who's now in the Lords, chairs the committee. I was on the committee with him when I served on it. He has said this could have come at least to inform the Intelligence Security Committee of what was happening. And I can assure everybody that in that spirit, that committee would have protected the confidentiality of that situation. But I think, you know, John Healey has done the right thing. Clearly, in government, he has done a review of this whole situation and quite rightly has decided that all these years on, the super injunction needs to be lifted and there will be a further investigation into what has happened here. But as we know, as you said, the story just keeps adding because now we have British personnel, others who have been working for our intelligence agencies also on the list.
I'm sorry, if you look at the simple facts, I mean, we went to war in Afghanistan. It was a war, part of the war on terror, you know, to protect innocent lives against the regime. What we have done, through whether it's a human error or a mistake, we have actually endangered lives now. So there are people in Afghanistan. Some reports claim, if you include the families and their relatives, up to 100,000 people could be in danger in Afghanistan. Now we know special forces. The Mirror, which we can't corroborate this, by the way, the Mirror have got an unnamed source that said they say at least 56 Western-trained Afghan special forces commandos have been hunted down and killed by Taliban death squads. And I've got to say, we haven't been able to verify that. But it is frightening what the consequences of this are. And just one simple error like this can lead to such catastrophic devastation for innocent people. There's lots of families. Afghan families will be here, but they're relatives we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that the MOD in all of the reporting has taken that lightly. I think the implications of that data breach were well understood inside the Ministry of Defence. The issue then is how did they handle it? So some people will say, and I'm sure the MOD will think this, that applying the super injunction was exactly about that protection, which was ensuring that there weren't people who were going to go out and seek that information. You know, the first sense that they had that that information was out was that they saw it on Facebook. There will be people who will try and exploit that and try and exploit the British government and use it perhaps to sell to the Taliban in order to find people. So I think everybody understands the implication. And I would say that in the first instance, I would also lean on something like a super injunction to be able to try and fix the mistake. What then happens afterwards, I think, is much more concerning, which is how long do you keep a super injunction there for? What lessons has the MOD learned and what can we do in order to protect those people that helped the British in Afghanistan? And my concern here is that then, you know, the question around the refugee scheme for those Afghanis then becomes under question when there's legitimate protection.
And the lack of that refugee scheme for the last 2 years as well, you know.
Because because they said that they'd assessed it. So is your view that the super injunction was genuinely about trying to remedy the terrible error and keep those safe? Because there have been suggestions it was also partly to spare the blushes of the government and the MOD, and also partly because this obviously is a very costly thing to have put right, having to relocate people. You know, 850 million at the least has been spent on it. So was it also partly not to have a big debate before the last election from the government of the time about large numbers of people coming into the country, the cost of that? Yeah. You know, is it a political super injunction?
I would not. It would be very odd for there not to be some element of cynicism involved in that decision-making. I think that's just human. I think the issue around the super injunction was that when it was first applied, it was then continually extended. And so, in the first instance, I can't believe that there was anything other than wanting to protect that data. The continual extension of it, I think, is a question mark in my mind as to why you would do that.
I suppose the repercussions go on, don't they? I mean, we're speaking to a former MI6 member a little bit later on about the risks that may be posed to those from special forces, those, as you say, family people that on the list may have been applying to come. And also the implications financially go on, don't they? So it's not, it's a terrible error, but not a done deal.
Oh, no, it's not a done deal. And I agree that in the first instance, whatever the discussion will be about how the breach happened, the most important thing was how do we, you know, minimise the danger to people's lives. Whether they're working for us or not, they were all on that list.
Yeah.
Summer's right, it's about how it carried on and that there was no discussion, as I said, with intelligence security, it's to say, this has happened, this is what we're doing. But the other point about it is because the list was applications, there clearly would have been people on that list who had supported us, who had, you know, worked with us during the conflict. But there may have been others who weren't. But because of this, the government has had to almost have a blanket situation to move people over, because once your name's on the list, it's on the list. And that, again, has
Well, it's led to
repercussions.
people, you know, certain sides of politics and reform saying, well, hang on, this is a problem. We're now paying for people who could be potentially criminals and not genuine seekers coming in. So it's allowed the situation to be inflamed.
Exactly. And to that end, with Salma's point, it's hard, whatever the right reasons for doing this, that a certain amount of cynicism creeps in about what they were trying to cover up.
Let's move on. Let's talk about Diane Abbott, shall we? She's back in the news again. Diane Abbott has been suspended again from the Labour Party, pending an investigation, after saying she has no regrets about comments on racism which led her to previously being suspended. So she did an interview with Jim Doherty on BBC's show Reflections. She recorded it in May, apparently. It came out this week. She tried to explain her initial comments. Just give her a bit of backstory. So she wrote a letter to The Guardian in response to a comment piece that was written about racism being black and white. And in that particular letter, she talked about... And the initial comment piece, by the way, referred to Irish, Jewish and tribal people. And in that, she appeared to imply that Jewish prejudice wasn't racism. She made a very clear thing, which was really quite shocking, really. You're going, hang on, they are a race. And, you know, and so too with travellers and Irish people. And then she said another line in that letter, which she said that not all their lives are subject to racism. It was seen as very defamatory at the time. She was suspended. She kind of seemed to do that political apology.
She also compared it to people with ginger hair being abused.
Yes. So we appeared to thought we'd moved on. Why is she bringing it up again now in an interview, do you think, and trying to clarify? Is there anything else behind it?
Maybe she just... I think what's most, you know, concerning in all of this is how, at the time, and she was suspended for the letter at the time, she did then apologise and basically retreat from what you've just said, Adil. So, having done this interview, she now seems to have doubled down, and that's the words of Angela Rayner as well, the Deputy Prime Minister, and basically say, no.
Now, some people might argue she was trying to have sort of a nuanced debate, speaking from a person who's suffered terrible racism, being black her life for a long time and lived with it and, you know, campaigned against it all her life, about, you know, the experience of people, the different experience of people who suffered racism. However, I think it was even that first phrase when she goes, not at all, in quite a chirpy way, which has really upset and offended Jewish people. And already they pointed out that actually within her constituency, there are many people who are very visibly Jewish because of the way they dress, the way they practice, and that actually it stirred up a concern that she doesn't get it.
But I think some people...
To put it bluntly.
Yeah, I mean, but some people also, some me and you know, as people of colour, it's something you can't... we are people of colour, you can't hide that. And I think that's the point she's making, that it is different for people of colour with racism. Not all Jewish people are Orthodox Jews will wear Jewish clothing and are visibly Jewish. Not all Jewish... And you have arguably the choice. Some will say it's the word of God and that's why they dress like that. But for people of colour, there is no choice, is there?
Yeah. Look, I find this very difficult because, to me, it is not about, you know, what's visible on the outside. It's the experience of every individual that is given, has made racist comments. It doesn't make it any easier if somehow people find out that you're a certain religion, for example. You know, so they might accept you on your looks basis, but they might not accept you on your religion basis. So there's all different kinds of things, and it's still hurtful, and it's still
damaging.
And damaging.
Yeah.
And so to segment it, yes, people's experience of racism is absolutely different. But I think what this comment takes away from is that the impact of it is pretty similar.
For the Labour Party, and the reason why she's been suspended again, I think goes to the fact that she was suspended, I think, for about a year and was... And in fact, Angela Rayner, I think, advocated for her to it, but she apologised. She apologised and took the criticism. for her, the Labour Party had no choice but to suspend her again when she is going into a broadcasted
interview. Do you think she
saying,
should join
I have no regrets?
The new Corbyn party, do you think? Is that the idea here?
Goodness knows. I really don't know. But I think, you know, I think nuanced is a polite way of saying playing with the truth to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Well, look, Diane Abbott gave a statement exclusively to BBC Newsnight, which she said, "It is obvious this Labour leadership wants me out. My comments in the interview with James Naughtie were factually correct, as any fair-minded person would accept." So that statement, again, seems to double down, as you put it, Caroline, on her position. Very different circumstances, but, of course, Keir Starmer has withdrawn the whip from 5 people in 48 hours. She was the 5th one of them. What do you make of this? Is this a response to a sense of showing leadership just before the summer break? Why do you think he has made these decisions? In fact, I think we might have a clip of him answering for the first time yesterday when he was with German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, talking about very different things, but was asked a specific question saying, "Are you rattled?" We haven't got it.
OK.
So, basically, he was pretty strong and clear, I thought. Caroline, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's about him asserting in his own mind discipline on the Parliamentary Labour Party. It's interesting, under Tony Blair, we had our issues as well, and actually on welfare reform as well.
Yeah, but he didn't suspend anybody.
No. And again, we had a large majority.
Which I think the implication was in the question that we haven't got the hit to hear.
So I think
is that it shows that he's responding to a challenge to his leadership in a way.
And I think that you know, part of the problem is that, you know, the reason why it came to this, part of the reason why it came to this, the head of this, is that the way they went about developing the rationale for welfare reform was overshadowed by having a retreat on winter fuel payment. And that gave, if you like, oxygen to rebels to say, right, now we're going to go for this. And having a large majority creates that jeopardy for governments.
Salma, isn't this a case of, often when they do this, is a warning to the rest of the MPs, isn't it? I mean, you know, they're going to come back after recess. We suspect there's going to be some really tough bills and decisions being made by this government, fiscal bills that are going to need majorities. They're going to need support. He can't risk even more of these people, you know, opposing their bills. Is this a sort of a warning to go, right, we need a tight ship in order? Go away and have a think about this, everyone, over recess and come back and play ball. Yeah,
of course he is. But the question is whether that works, right? Anybody who's, you know, worked in any environment with any team, you've got to ask yourself, actually, if I'm hardline on this, am I going to get the best result? Or will I get a better result if I do some outreach and work out, you know, what is exactly the problem? And, yeah, lots of rebels, now that he's got this big majority, you know what happens on parliamentary backbenchers? People go, well, if I'm a little bit naughty on this, it's fine because the Prime Minister will still get it through.
Yeah,
but actually, I'll be OK because, you know, I've shown my constituents that I've fought on their behalf. So you can't predict how this is going to go. But there's one thing, I mean, Caroline's given an excellent summary of it, and those of us who follow politics will see the logic of how this has gone. But if you only spend 10 minutes a week focused on politics and you're hearing this, I'm sorry, Caroline, but people are going to say, what a shambles, what an absolute shambles. He cannot put it together.
People who may well spend less than 10 minutes on politics, I think about 7 seconds is what they spend on TikTok, isn't it? Is 16-year-olds who are now going to be part of those constituents who will be allowed to vote in all UK elections. Good thing, Salma? Let's come to you first of all.
No. I mean, I was
clear. Right, moving on then.
Against it. I mean, I was obviously a complete nerd at 16. It was like, you know, member of the Young Conservatives and all that kind of stuff.
You surprised me, Salma. You surprised me.
But even I would not trust my 16-year-old self. And I think that there is and we've discussed this before, there is kind of a little maturity gap, I think, between 16 and 18 that I think requires that bridging before you get to make those choices.
So why is the kid doing this, then? Because traditionally, younger people have tended to be more left-wing, but this survey shows that actually there's a hefty chunk that are indicating at 16 they'd vote reform. Could this backfire?
Well, I mean, you know, be careful what you wish for in these circumstances. I'm not really in favour of it either, to be honest. And
is that because we're a bunch of oldies sitting around this desk?
Speak for yourself.
I believe there's, you know, I wouldn't give myself this vote at 16. So, I mean, you know, I think there's a level of maturity. And what's ridiculous, we have various age limits for what, say, you're adult. So I think you've got some information about all the things that 16-year-olds cannot do. You know, and all of those things implied that they're not adult enough to make decisions.
Pay taxes at 16, though.
Yeah,
Die your
I had
country at 16.
You don't fight for your country at 16.
You can't go to combat.
No, you can't go into combat.
You can serve in the army,
You can be a cadet, you can serve in the army, but you're not allowed to actually be in the line of fire. And so that's a crucial difference. Okay. And, you know, you can't give blood, you can't buy a lottery ticket, you can't buy a knife, even a kitchen knife, you can't buy, I think, butane gas.
You certainly can't load a dishwasher.
You can't buy
I can tell you that for nothing, as a mother of one.
I know people in their 40s who can't do that, so, you know.
I think what's going to happen is that every mother in the country of a 16-year-old is going to be thinking, oh,
no
my
way.
God,
No
that's
way.
another thing I'm going to have to force
Some people say, on one hand, you can't accuse them of being irresponsible and not give them responsibility.
But lots of young people don't believe. I think, I mean, every school I went into when I was an MP and asked this, they said no.
We're going to have to.
Do you know what? We're going to leave it there because we're going to talk about this throughout the show. We've got a debate on it. There's something that I know is going to make you very cross when you come back later in the show.